Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm finally ready to do my full review on this bad boy. This is a Tom Krein fixed blade. The model is the TK8, and it was actually loaned to me by my buddy Wes, aka the Pocket Perspective. I'm going to link to Wes's channel down below. You might have seen we actually did a live unboxing together where I unboxed this and this, which I'm also about to review, and he unboxed the knives I loaned to him, which were the Giant Mouse Ace Grand and the ProTech Malibu. And so he's got reviews of both of those on his channel. I know he's done, as of when I'm filming this, the Grand review is live. I'm not sure if the Malibu one is yet when this goes live. Either way, on his channel you'll be seeing reviews of those knives, and I really like kind of collaborating with Wes in this way, like loaning each other knives, and that live we did together was fun. Partially because I just think he's a cool dude and I consider him a friend, but also the way that he reviews knives is drastically different from the way that I do it. He's very focused on specs and kind of like analytical about it, and I'm the opposite. I'm very like, how did this knife make me feel, right? And I think it's really good as a consumer to kind of see both sides, and he's a master at his craft. He's really, really good at what he does. I'm sure his channel is just going to continue to grow. So thank you again, Wes, and everyone watching. Wes will be linked down below. So this is my first experience with a Krein knife. I have seen a lot of people with his fixed blades. I have seen a lot of people with his regrinds, but I've never owned anything that he's done. So this was exciting for me. I had been talking to Wes a little bit in DMs just about gear he had that I hadn't checked out, and for him, gear that I had that he hadn't checked out, and this was one of those things that I was really anxious to kind of get my hands on. So these are all customs, Tom Krein's fixed blades, that is, as far as I know. I don't think he's done any production ones, but this one is really, really nice. So we've got a G10 handle construction, and it's actually fairly thin G10. I feel like Wes said it was about 1/8 inch, if I'm not mistaken. And just a really simple construction. We've got a pin up here, we've got a lanyard tube back there. The blade steel on this guy, as you'll see stamped right there, if I can get that to show, right there. It's in 3V, which for me, 3V is one of my absolute preferred fixed blade steels. No doubt about it. I don't know what the dimensions are on this guy. I'm sure you could look it up, or maybe Wes has a video on his channel. Again, I'm not really a specs dude, but I'd guess this blade is about 4.5 inches if I had to guesstimate. It's stamped on here, Krein 2018, with the Krein logo. So this knife is now a couple years old. I don't know how it works for Tom Krein, whether you just get in contact with him and say, hey, I want you to make this model for me, and he tells you a price, or whether you have to get on his books, or whether he does like, he'll just make some and then they're available, or I don't know how he makes it work because I've never bought anything from him. But I feel like Wes said he specifically reached out to Tom Krein about this knife and how to make it for him, although I know that they're kind of friends, so it is what it is. I'm not going to try to be the expert on all things Tom Krein here, because clearly I am not, but I will talk about how much I have enjoyed this blade. So let's talk about first how much I've carried it and how, and what I've used it for, and then I'll kind of get into a little bit of a review here. So first of all, it comes with a really nice Kydex sheath. The retention on it is very good. It's got like a tiny bit of rattle, but not enough that it would even bother me, and it's super locked in. This thing is just not coming out. So retention on the sheath is very good, and the sheath itself is kept really slim. That's one of the advantages of Kydex over other sheath materials oftentimes, is they do stay slimmer, but this one is particularly really slim. I think he used fairly thin Kydex to make this happen, but you can see it's got, I always forget what these are called. I want to say it's like a tech lock or something on here. It took me a second to figure it out the first time. So there's like this latch thing on here. Am I crazy? No, I'm going to mess it up again, aren't I? There's this latch thing on here. Oh, there we go. I always push it the wrong way. That's what it is. So on here, you pull this out, and then you pinch these, and that whole thing comes open. You can put this on a belt, onto a pack, whatever you want. If you're just putting it on a belt, you can also frankly just slip it through there. But I've worn this on my belt now for 2 hikes, And one thing I really like about how slim the profile is overall, and I'll loop in some footage of me with this on my belt so you can see, it hides, or it tucks really close onto the body. So I love fixed blades for hiking, for when I'm outdoors like this and stuff, right? But with my current day pack, it has like thick hip straps, and a lot of like larger packs do. And frankly, the pack that I have could probably be like a 72-hour pack, but when I'm bringing my camera and a tripod and a bunch of different knives that I'm filming in a day and like stuff, right? It's my day pack, because if I cut out the camera and the tripod, it would be like a good overnighter or 2-day or maybe even stretched to 3-day pack. But it's got hip straps on it. That's what I'm trying to say. And oftentimes with fixed blades, if they carry on your hip vertical with hip straps, it just doesn't really work. But this one sits so uptight to my body that it actually didn't really bother me. And the way that I use my pack, when I'm just doing my typical like normal hiking, I don't actually have the hip straps latched most of the time, or the chest strap. It's just when I'm like gonna climb over a face and get onto something up high where I really need to make sure the pack is tight on my body. But if I'm just going down the trail, I don't need it latched anyways. But the other day when I was hiking with this on my hip, I went ahead, as I was going up to my kind of preferred waterfall spot. There's some spots where you need to climb with your hands, and it's important that my pack is tight on my body, and I clipped my waist straps right over this, and it didn't bother me at all. Other fixed blades that I have do bother me if I do that, so I like that about it. In addition to that, so beyond carrying it on a couple of hikes, I've also tucked it in my fanny pack a good few times. I've got that kind of back slot. If you watch my fanny pack video, you'll see there's a perfect slot to tuck a fixed blade this size back there, and so I've done that a few times, and when I've carried it that way, I've used it for some EDC stuff. And then one day, for really almost the whole day, I did have it on me as like part of my EDC, because it fits, again, so snug to my body that if I'm wearing an extra large t-shirt, which I like to wear XLs anyways, have some room to move around, it covers it. And so unless I'm like raising my hand to ask the teacher a question, which isn't a thing I do, then like it's concealed. And so I like it in that way. It's totally doable as an EDC fixed blade. Even vertical carry, which is usually a no-no for me. I'm almost always adamant about having horizontal carry up on the front of my body for it to be a fixed blade EDC, or an EDC fixed blade. Anyway, I've carried it once as an EDC, few times in my fanny pack, and then I think on 3 hikes total now. And each time it's just been great. It carries really well. So in terms of what I've done with it use-wise, so far, I guess it's concluding now. Tomorrow this is going back into the mail to go home to West. But I've done a few packages when I EDC'd it that day. I happened to open some boxes, and then again, while it's been in my fanny pack, I've pulled it out a few times for just literally like opening Amazon boxes and stuff. Processed a little bit of cardboard for it just to feel how it did for that EDC type of stuff, and it did quite well. And then outdoors here, this isn't my knife, and it's a custom. It's just pretty, and I'm pretty sure Wes would be fine with it if I used it fairly hard, but I haven't like really beat on this knife just because it's not mine. And so at the end of the day, I've done a little bit of outdoor stuff, like if there's been, like while it's been on my hip while I'm hiking, if there's like yucca growing over the trail, which I don't know if you're familiar with what a yucca plant looks like at the base, but every single like leaf is a needle tip, and they will, if you brush up against it with your shin, you're gonna have a bunch of bleeding spots in your shin. Like, they're really difficult, and so they're not that hard to cut through. It's just the very tip that gets really sharp. And so on my last hike, part of the trail that I go on, I don't know how many other human beings use it. It's like very rare that other people are on it, so it gets overgrown pretty quickly, and there was a yucca that had kind of started growing over, and so I just cut a bunch of those little like spines that went over the trail. It did great for that, and then small twigs and stuff hanging over, I'll give them a quick whack. Stuff that I usually do with the fixed blade that's tucked on my pack, but because I had this on my hip, that's what I pulled out for it. I haven't done any batoning, I haven't done anything all that crazy, so I can just kind of speculate on that. But I'll say I've seen some of Tom Krein's knives in like torture videos where they're really being tested, and I've never seen one do poorly. And the way that this one is constructed, it's excellent. It's a nice hollow grind, it's 3V blade steel, and it's a nice thick stock, but with the hollow grind you're actually getting a pretty good edge profile down here. It's got this really good profile up here, so you've got a nice workable tip. And yeah, I think if this was my knife, I'd have zero hesitation for maybe keeping it as my knife on my pack, or having it as a belt knife while I'm out here. Like, this would make a great outdoor companion, and based on the limited amount of cutting that I have done, I can say with pretty good confidence that I'm sure it'll handle a lot more than what I have done with it. So let's talk about ergos real quick. The ergos on this knife are excellent for me. They're really, really good. So you can see the handle profile is fairly neutral. There's nothing crazy dramatic happening here, but we do have a little bit of a kind of choil this way. There's a dramatic sharpening choil as well, which I think is a good thing. Anyways, there's this finger choil up here, and then nice flat. You got a nice kind of gentle curve back here. It's just super neutral. So you can see even my second finger kind of lands right on like the hump of this when I'm really on the knife, and it's so comfortable. Usually if my finger lands kind of where that curve is on handles that have choils, it's uncomfortable, but here it almost feels like it's, I don't know, it's like a 1.5 finger groove for me, but it actually works for some reason. It's really, really nice in that way. And a hammer grip feels great. Saber grip feels great. Reverse grip feels, oh, phenomenal. I really, really like this knife in a reverse grip. Reverse grip draw cut, totally doable, very comfortable. Forward grip draw cut, very, very comfortable. In fact, when I was cutting that yucca plant, that's one of those cases where I use a draw cut, and so literally, like, I don't even remember which hand I passed it to, whether it was in my left hand or my right hand. Good thing about a fixed blade is they're inherently ambidextrous too, but yeah, I literally was just draw cutting up through the plant because that seemed like the easiest, safest way to cut it without like accidentally slamming down. Sorry, helicopter went by. As I was saying, that seemed like the easiest and safest way to make that specific cut without like slamming down into a rock or something. So I really like the ergos on this knife. The fact that I can use it in any orientation, which I think is especially valuable on a fixed blade, because the types of cutting tasks that I do, like camp chores and stuff, and just like processing wood and like hacking at things and clearing trails, like it's nice to be able to throw a knife into an odd grip and make cuts into weird angles and stuff that you don't do opening boxes, you know. So yeah, ergos are an absolute win on this guy. Cutting, I already talked about, but the cutting, it's done very, very well. I feel like it's interesting that this is kind of a blend, because it did super well for EDC cutting tasks, and the whole thing is so slim and carries so well that it would make a great EDC fixed blade. And oftentimes I've found that the fixed blades that seem like they'd be a proper EDC fixed blade, they seem a little bit lacking in terms of like my confidence in them as outdoor knives, because I expect a lot from my outdoor knives. Like, I want to be able to bushcraft with them, you know, like whether I actually do all those things on a regular basis or not, the fixed blades that go on me regularly to go outdoors, I find I really care how robust they feel and how confident I am in them. So the fact that this one is like slicey at EDC tasks, and also is something that I would, if this was mine, again, I wouldn't have any fear about batoning this knife, like, that's really cool. So I think he's done a good job at striking a balance there. Yeah, there's no need to talk about action on here because it's a fixed blade. We've talked about carry. I guess that's kind of it. So this is a little bit of a different review, I suppose, because it's a fixed blade and it's a loner and all that. But I'll probably be reviewing a few more fixed blades in the near future. There's some exciting stuff that I want to get my hands on, and I really love fixed blades. In fact, for most of my life, I preferred fixed blades to folders, like in terms of what I was excited to get. I had nicer fixed blades growing up than I did folders a lot of the time. Most of them were like cold steels and stuff, but like good cold steel fixed blades that I would take outdoors and I would beat on and I would enjoy more than I ever enjoyed using my folders, just because the tasks are so much more demanding and so much more engaging, right? Like getting outside and using a fixed blade, it's so much fun. Sorry, I brought up a bean burrito, and part of the bean was still in my mouth. That's gross information. Anyway, this fixed blade is just really, really nice. I've kind of geeked over Krein's regrinds for a long time, and then I've seen his fixed blades, and I've heard a lot of good things about them, but they never really like jumped out at me. And I was always like passively curious just because I was hearing good things. But like looking at them, if I'm being totally honest, the profile of this knife before I had it in hand, I probably wouldn't have picked this one. It just didn't speak to me. But now that I've held it and used it a little and carried it, like I get it. This is a great fixed blade. One thing that I didn't mention that I love as well, all of the surfaces and edges and everything on here are so smooth. And I feel like not only is jimping overused a lot of the time on folders, but on fixed blades too. People just throw jimping onto knives like it's going to solve all the problems. And this knife ergonomically, it's super indexed. I think part of that is the kind of thin profile. I really like feel what orientation the edge is in at all times. But it's also locked in. Like the way that my fingers grip into this section right here and kind of pull the knife into me. And then the way that the spine is this nice comfortable spot with even this little like ramp going downwards to kind of put my knuckle in, or if I choke back, I've got it this way. Like it's a very intuitive knife to hold on to, and there's no extra like gritty, grippy stuff anywhere. Even the G10 is much less aggressive than most G10. It's not polished G10, it has a little bit of texture to it, but compared to like most peel ply G10 or whatever, where it's like where they've really sandpapered it up, this feels very smooth. But I don't need more grip than this, and so I like that it's classy. It feels very refined in hand, but it also feels like stupid capable because it's 3V and it's thick blade stock, and it's like it's just done really well. So I'm really impressed with this knife. Long story short, I would like to get a Krein fixed blade of my own. I don't know when or where that will be, whether it will be the TK8 like this one or another one of his models, but I really like the size of this one. I like the way it's performed. I feel like this is a great, great pack knife, like day hike or small trip, maybe even backpacking, because it's a good profile for it, but it's also so approachable as an EDC fixed blade, and it's frankly bigger, at least in length, than any other fixed blade that I'd really have considered EDCing. But trying it out, the way it carries is just so good. Yeah, I'm repeating myself a lot, so I'm going to tie this up. But I really, really like this one. I hope to find one that I can get for myself soon, because I'm genuinely impressed. And I want to thank Wes again for loaning it to me. I'll link to the Pocket Perspective down below, both his YouTube channel and his Instagram, because he's on both. And yeah, thanks Wes. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.